Obviously, full week ahead of us here. We've got a good Indiana team here. I think you guys know how they play right now. Big and physical, long across the front line. Got good shooting across the board. And a little bit different than what we played them last time, but not significantly different. Looking forward to that challenge on Tuesday.
Obviously, I don't think you expect shots not to fall the way they did last time you played Indiana. But what other things did you take from that game and now can apply into this one as you enter Tuesday?
Yeah, I think some of those were good looks, really good looks, and then some of them I thought we could have taken a better. We could have just had better, more effective offense, but. Some of them were just really good looks that we just missed, and some of them I think we've got to be able to play through the paint maybe a little bit better than what we did.
And then coming off of such a tough stretch of the schedule like this, how important is it for the team to get its feet back under them and put on a good showing in these two home games?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, as I've talked about, is how are you playing? That's the biggest thing. If you're playing well and you can, increase how long you're playing well, and you can play better for longer stretches, you're going to give yourselves a chance. Everybody in this team is good. Everybody in this league is good. Everybody is more than capable. You have to play every night, and obviously, Indiana's a good team, as is Maryland, and we'll need to play well. And I like the way the guys have prepared and practiced, but we need to do things better, longer than what we have.
You said you've liked some things you've seen these last couple of games. You've been closer. Your numbers have improved, and especially offensively. What is the challenge of building on those things and finding a way to then turn that into wins when you do have some home opportunities like this?
Yeah, I think just doing it longer, better. I think we played with good purpose offensively. That's probably been the biggest takeaway these last couple games. And I think more than anything, just do things better, longer. We offensive rebound well in the last game, but that's the biggest challenge.
Playing with better purpose offensively, did something get away from you guys for a little while? Was it just a case of playing tough teams and they were taking you out of some things? But what the offense be playing better now? What wasn't going well maybe 2-3 weeks ago?
I think we just I don't take too long to probably get into great detail in terms of how we just weren't playing with the kind of purpose we needed to offensively. But it was across the board. I think whether it's not playing through the paint as much or taking too many kind of shots that just weren't where the defense was collapsing. I still think we have to play with better pace. It's a combination of things.
Coach, did Devin validate the extra minutes when he had 17, 18 minutes?
Yeah.
Can we expect to see that going forward?
Yeah, some of it's dictated on matchups, but the thing I just said in the radio show is I'm really pleased with Devin is he's had a great approach here really for a month and a half in practice. He's learning how to guard different positions. That's been the biggest challenge, as it is for every freshman. In high school, he kind of guarded bigger guys. They weren't as big as they are at this level, but still bigger guys. You could kind of put him, around the basket. Now he has to chase guys, and that's a transition for guys. He's been committed to getting better in that area, and now he's playing with confidence. And we've been able to, I think, find some spots for him to maybe feel some success offensively, but. The credit to him has been his work and his consistency of his work.
The ability for him to score didn't surprise you?
No, he's going to be a very good player in terms of being able to score the ball at this level. A very good player, and he'll be a guy that next year shoots threes at a regular clip. So that's going to add to his game. It's just going to be parts of his game that are going to be added every year. But offensively, he's always been a very gifted player.
Chris, you talked last year about how you started to feel like you guys were playing better before the wins came. Is that what it feels like right now with the last couple of games?
I think we're playing better. But again, I just have to really stress that we've got to do it. I think for us to see the rewards, we got to do it better, longer, sustain an effort longer, more detail for longer stretches. We've just that's what's in front of us, and I think if we continue to do that, there'll be good things that'll happen. But yeah, we've played better in certain areas for sure these last 2 games.
And it seemed like you guys kind of took those punches in the second half better at Iowa than you had earlier. Like they had an 11-4 run, you guys answered. They would strike back, you guys answered. Is that something you can build off of here at home?
I did like our guys' approach when that happened. To your point, I did think they had a good way about them, a good response, good in the huddles, really good communication on the floor, good poise to them as well. Really did like our response in those moments. Now, a couple of those we made shots. You know, that always makes you feel better when you make a couple shots to stymie a run. But I did really like our guys' response in the huddles from what we were able to see being around them in the midst of a little bit of game adversity.
Chris, have you found that it's typically harder to get younger players to play the kind of defense you need them to play versus the kind of offense that you need them to play?
For sure. Yeah, I think for sure. And I think every coach would probably say that. You know, every coach would say sustaining an effort, in some cases it's physicality of the game. You know, you're seeing that with young players in our league, really talented young players across the board in our league that maybe aren't playing a ton, and maybe it's because they just lack the physicality right now. In other cases, they're adapting to guarding positions maybe they haven't guarded in high school. It's just a really, it's a learning curve, and when you get into league play, the margin for error in games are really small, so if you're giving up multiple possessions on the defensive end, it's hard to get that back, regardless of how much you're scoring. So it's a big challenge. But if guys really care about it, they'll get better with it. Devin's gotten better with it. Guys like EJ got better every year with it. If they really care and want to play, they'll get better with it.
You mentioned bigger picture question. You mentioned a guy on the show, Tony Perkins, and how he's a role player. He's come off the bench. I think his freshman year, he maybe got 8-9 minutes a game. He's very small. And now he's one of the best players on the court in that game. How as a coach do you have to luck into guys like that? Just with everything that's going on, you know what I mean? And then trying to manage the roster and get some veterans in the portal and keep guys growing.
I think sometimes it's a recruiting sweet spot that you're looking for with kids where maybe they fit the profile of a kid who's going to be maybe a 4-year guy, and then you got to figure out how to hang on to him too. So I think there's a recruiting sweet spot that you're looking for in that, where maybe guys or the people around them, know that there's going to be an investment in college in terms of how long they're going to be there. Because, it's hard to see the return on investment with young players, and particularly with freshmen, but Tony Perkins, they're starting to see what that investment and investing in him and his development over a course of time. Alfonso Ellis, who was on the game broadcast, he's the one who said he's like an older school player, the guys that we used to play with, where they would stick around for 4 years. I think he's a 4th-year player, maybe a 5th-year player, kind of wait his turn and then really grow into a good player. And to his credit, he's done that and having a really solid year.
I heard you talking on the show about Roddy, and he's got to be more defensively minded. I mean,
I think it's sustaining an effort, Clay, as much as anything. We're asking him to do a ton. He typically is guarding the best perimeter. I think it's more about sustaining an effort when he gets tired. It's the thing that for him has always struggled a little bit in terms of being able to play through a little bit of fatigue. And we knew that with him, and I think he's got to stay in great shape. That's the biggest thing for him. Sustaining an effort in a high detail for longer possessions. And again, given how much we're asking him to do.
Yeah, I mean, no coach has a formula to make a kid fall in love with defense. I mean, if you played the game, you want the ball.
Yes. He does, though. He cares about defense. He does. I just think it's pushing through the fatigue, of all we're asking him to do. But I legitimately think he cares about being a good defender. I also think he knows for him to reach his dreams in terms of being an NBA player, it's going to come as a two-way player in terms of a guy who can impact both ends.
Scotty Middleton wasn't available for the game there on Friday.
Right.
what is his status, I suppose, short-term, long-term right now?
Day-to-day, a foot injury, did it in practice the day before the game. So he's day-to-day, but he did some things yesterday, so he's moving around a little bit better.
I saw some of the comments after the game that you made to Adam about trying to maintain positivity and these kind of things. Just, I know everything in your life right now, or at least your coaching life, is pointed toward Indiana, but what can you say, I guess? I mean, this has been a rough 3 weeks here, to get it kind of flipped around and going in the right direction, I guess, overall.
I think the biggest thing, Steve, is you're focusing on. I mean, there's no other point in focusing on anything but preparation for practice today and the game tomorrow. That's my job. That's our coaching staff's job. That's all that matters right now. Is how do we do that and do that as well as how do we do today's practice as well as we can and prepare them as well as we can for Indiana. That's not coach speak. It's not anything else other than the honesty. I've said that at this time of year in every place I've ever coached. That's all that matters is the present day and getting better with what we're doing. If we do that, then I think good things will happen.
Transition point seemed like kind of an outlier in that game, maybe a little bit different
Yeah.
than what you guys have allowed. Felt like a lot of the other things had gotten back to where you needed them to be.
Yeah.
But I don't know, just your thought about that and that emphasis of not getting beaten back, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't think our transition defense was as good as it needed to be, for sure. And it's a strength for them, but we've got to be able to take away team strength or at least mitigate their strength. And in the last 2 games, we've not been able to do that as well as we needed to against Illinois or Iowa. So, there's no question that's been a point of emphasis.
Dale Bonner, what has he brought, maybe in comparison to what you guys thought coming in, and kind of how has his role evolved maybe than what you thought?
Well, he's had a great approach here late. It was good to see him make the 3, and he's had a great approach. I think we have an action late game that he's been incredibly accurate with, which we tried to run late. Wanted him to get the 3 off before he was going to get fouled in the Iowa game. He's been probably as accurate as any player we've coached at kind of making 3s on the run with some distance with his speed. And that's the reason he had the ball in his hands at that moment. So I think he's a young man that has had a really good approach and is going to be important. He's willing to do whatever the team needs him to do at this moment right now, which has been good to see.
I think you look at transfers and there's like an assumption, because they're older guys typically, not all the time, but a lot of those guys, that they should come in and fit in quicker. And like Jameson has done that.
Yeah.
Why, for a guy like Dale, maybe does it not, at least from the outside, look like that? Why
Jameson and Evans' role has been a little bit bigger. Sometimes it's harder for guys playing the kind of minutes that Dale's playing. That'd be probably more of a question for him than me. But I think sometimes when you're, Evan, and we've seen Evan grow through some struggles, but really grow as a player. I think with Jameson, he's playing a big role. Sometimes a little bit harder for a guy that's playing spot minutes, particularly a transfer.
If I could just ask, if Roddy had caught that ball, it feels like he's coming around and going to go down the left side of the lane. Is he in that position to either pull up and hit that shot that he likes to hit, or try and get it as far in there as he can?
What ball are you talking about?
The last play against Iowa. If
Okay.
he had gotten the ball.
Oh, yes.
Instead of
Yeah.
the double dribble call.
Yes.
What were you hoping to accomplish with Roddy there?
I mean, it was an action we run a lot. It's a screen rescreen where Felix is sealing the big and Roddy's having the lane to drive, and we had a matchup we really liked on Roddy. So it was the matchup we that's why we called it. We just, not that the kid wouldn't have stopped him, wouldn't have guarded him, but we had everything right where we wanted it right now. And again, I hesitate to say too much because Felix played a really good game, and he just made an error that sometimes players make. But we had everything in terms of the matchup we really wanted.
But like you said with Felix, he was pretty dominant for large stretches of that game. Probably hard to take him off the floor. When he plays like that, and when Devin plays the way that he did, especially in the first half, does that make it hard for Zed to get minutes? Does some of that go into Zed only playing 3 minutes in that game?
Yeah, I'm not really too concerned about trying to divvy up minutes. It's going to be who's most effective and who's playing the best at this moment and who gives us the best chance to win. regardless of kind of the class or whatever, and who's practicing well and who's really, showing in practice that they're practicing at the level they need to give us the best chance. And Devin's done a good job of that.
And then you said earlier in some of those huddles, like when Iowa was putting a run together, that you guys were responding well, and some of that's when shots go in, things feel better.
Yeah.
When you talk about like sustaining an effort, and you talk about some of these things that you've kind of been harping on for a little while, does some of that get easier with wins? Like when you get a win, that like some of that stuff will sustain itself more because guys are seeing that success pay off?
Well, I think you got to be tougher as a group than that. I think you got to be able to sustain an effort when it's hard, and that's what's in front of us right now. And I'm confident this group will do that. But I don't think your effort can be dictated by the success you're seeing in a segment of a game or in the game in general. It has to be consistent, and that's where we have to grow.
Hey, Chris, real quick. You mentioned on the show that there were some guys banged up. All right,
Yeah.
Is that concern for tomorrow, or just guys getting?
I think we'll be all right. I don't think it's anything significant. Now, we've got another practice today, but I don't think it's anything significant to hold a guy out right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.